Okay.
I could call a special meeting to order. Roll call. Let's see who's actually here. It's good. Stephen Gudichak. Here. Michael Kane. Here. Lauren Gauthier.
Hi, Clint is online.
Oh, it is online? It's online. So therefore I will appoint Michael if you take to the secretary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Want Lauren and Clint to seat for Jeffrey and Susan. How do you want to start? Do you have a presentation for us or?
Jeff does. Yes,
Jeff,
that's
you-
right. So this is the initial introduction to the Mouse Island zoning that we have been working on for a couple of months now. Attending are the three folks who own the lots out at Mouse Island. Jeff Davis is also here, and he's going to run through what we've developed so far. And I'll let you know that all the folks on Mouse Island have been working with us, and they've looked at this as well, but they're also here to give you any input. Take it away, Jeff.
Great. Thank you so much, and really appreciate the PCC holding this special meeting, and also appreciate all three property owners being here tonight. So, Mouse Island. I want to start with just a little bit of background. So, location, for those of you who may not be familiar, Mouse Island is just off the southwest corner of Noanks Morgan Point. It is less than 1 acre in size altogether. In terms of topography, it's a rather rocky island with limited foliage, and currently split into 3 parcels. And each of those parcels currently has a small house on it. It is accessible only by boat. There are no bridges or other connections, and it is not connected to any public utilities. So why are we here? Why are we talking about zoning for this island? Currently, there is no zoning on the island, and this has sort of been a hot potato for several decades of different jurisdictions, claiming that, oh, it's someone else's problem. But we've determined pretty definitively that the island does belong to the town of Groton, and therefore it is the town's responsibility to provide zoning. And a complicating issue is that because there is no zoning currently, there is no legal path for a zoning certificate and therefore a building permit. So as property owners have sought to renovate or build additions, the town was struggling with how to what process to apply. Although I will say I should note that DEP has required permitting in the past at the state level. So just want to give the PCC a little bit of a history on development on the island. In the 1880s was when the island was first divided into these 3 lots, and the first houses were constructed. By 1937, there were 5 cottages. 5 cottages had been built on the island. Of course, in 1938, the hurricane of 1938 came through and destroyed all 5 of those structures. 10 years later, by 1948, 3 new cottages had been built over that time to replace what had been destroyed in the 38 hurricane. And of course, there was Hurricane Carol in 1954 that again damaged all 3 homes pretty significantly. Since 1954, all 3 homes have been rebuilt and subsequently remodeled to what we have today. And you can see some images of some of the existing homes on the island. So one of the first things we did, even before, of course, coming to the PCC, was to have conversations with all of the property owners and try to get a sense of what their concerns were, what their goals are for the future of their properties. The number one issue by far was their ability to rebuild after a disaster. Again, more than likely a hurricane, maybe flooding, whatever it may be, the ability to rebuild what they have quickly after disaster. Another issue was accessory structures. They would like the ability to construct accessory structures such as sheds without having to go through too much rigmarole. Minimum lot size was a big concern, and we will talk about that in more detail on a subsequent slide. But there was some concern that natural processes over time, whether erosion or significant loss of land during a storm, could shrink the current lot sizes and reduce the size of the island. And so there was a concern that they wanted to be able to rebuild and not have their lots be considered non-conforming if that were to happen. And again, I'll tell you in a bit how the town is proposing to address that. But the fear is that over time their parcels will become non-conforming, which would of course trigger variances for construction and repairs. Building heights, another concern. Again, the desire to most of the three houses on the island today are 2 stories. So there was a desire to be able to rebuild to that height and want to make sure that whatever our standards are, it wouldn't preclude them from rebuilding their existing 2-story houses. In terms of short-term rentals, this wasn't really a high priority for anyone, but I think everyone agreed that it would be a nice option to have. And certainly they wouldn't mind if their neighbors were doing that. And likewise, accessory dwelling units, nice to have as an option. Again, assuming there's adequate space to accommodate an ADU, whether within one of the existing structures or on a detached structure on the site. Another thing that I should say just generally is that the intent after we had these conversations with the property owners was to create zoning for the island that provided as great flexibility as possible with minimum town stipulations. However, I think it is important to note at this point that any rebuilding must still comply with flood protection regulations and, of course, adhere to the town's coastal site plan application. And, of course, state standards are in full effect, including standards within the coastal jurisdiction line and so forth. So we're not recommending altering that at all. That is what it is, particularly at the state level, but really trying to minimize any additional town regulations on the island. And again, we'll talk about minimum lot size more in a moment, but I do want to just note that staff had originally proposed a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size, which we thought initially would be enough to provide the opportunity to rebuild, but also not make it so small that we run the risk of further subdivision of the island, which is something I think everyone would like to avoid. So all that to say, based on our research, based on our conversations with the property owners, we approached this zoning in order to facilitate the ongoing maintenance of the existing 3 houses and any associated accessory structures. As I already said, facilitate the rebuilding and repair of these structures in the aftermath of a storm or other disaster. Desire to see this really being a residential island with 1-unit dwellings allowed, as well as accessory dwelling units and short-term rentals. We're really not looking at any commercial uses outside a normal home occupation where no clients or customers would be visiting on site. The dimensional standards, as a consequence, are really minimal given the topography, given the desire for this flexibility. So you'll see we have very, very minimal dimensional standards compared to other zoning districts in town. And of course, once the PCC is comfortable with the zoning text, we will need to conduct a zoning map amendment with a new color to represent this new zoning district, the Mouse Island Residential, or RMI. So I mentioned minimal dimensional standards, and you'll see a lot of not applicable. So we are not recommending a minimum lot width, nor maximum lot coverage, nor a minimum lot area per dwelling unit, None of that makes sense in this context. And likewise for setbacks. There really was no sense in creating setbacks in this context, with one exception. We are proposing that there's a 6-foot setback from any property line, so that, there's that little bit of buffer between whatever may be happening from one property to the next, one lot to the next. As a caveat, all new construction shall be located landward of the reach of the Connecticut coastal jurisdiction line, since all of Mouse Island is in that zone VE. So again, we're not messing with state law. That is what it is. So just wanted to make that clear. But in terms of additional town dimensional standards, very minimal. So minimum lot size. As I said, the town initially proposed 5,000 square feet. This would ensure that all 3 lots are conforming. And again, staff analysis suggested that this would not be enough buildable area to further subdivide the 3 lots, which was a concern on the part of the town. The property owners, again, as we discussed, were concerned that erosion and so forth over time or natural disasters could reduce their lot sizes below 5,000 square feet over time. And the initial request was that there be a 0 minimum lot size. And for a variety of reasons, town staff is really not comfortable with a 0. There are a lot of potential implications, maybe not for today's property owners, but future property owners could take advantage of that in really weird ways. So staff analysis showed that roughly 3,500 square feet minimum lot size would be needed to rebuild existing structures, but they're comfortable reducing that to 2,500 square feet as that compromise between nothing and 5,000 square feet. So the desire is still make sure these lots remain conforming, that they do not become non-conforming over time, while also ensuring that further subdivision does not take place. In terms of building height, again, addressing that concern that, can we rebuild a 2-story home in the case of a disaster, in case of destruction of a house. And the proposed standard is that you have a 30-foot maximum height, which would allow for that 2 stories. But that building height is measured from the base flood elevation plus 1 foot. So we're acknowledging, yes, you're going to have to raise the structure to get above the base flood elevation. And we're going to allow that 30 feet to be measured from there and not from the average finished grade. So again, the intent of that is to continue to allow those 2-story buildings from that raised elevation. In terms of permitted uses on the island in this proposed district, all uses would be prohibited except accessory dwelling units would be allowed with some conditions. A 1-unit dwelling permitted. Home-based businesses allowed, so long as it's only a home office, and again, no clients or visitors. Short-term rentals would be permitted, and of course, your signs on-premise and signs temporary, just like any other residential district, that would remain the same. In terms of other edits that we would need to make to the zoning regulations, housekeeping things to be consistent, there are certain regulations within the zoning that don't make a whole lot of sense in the context of an island without roads or frontage. So in addition to the new section on the Mouse Island residential zone, we're recommending a few additional edits. So for the accessory buildings section, we noticed that accessory buildings can be located anywhere on the property other than within that 6 feet from an adjacent property line or seaward of the Connecticut coastal jurisdiction line. So all the other dimensional standards for accessory buildings would not apply to Mouse Island. It just wouldn't make any sense. Likewise, for required frontage and access, this section 4.22J requires a lot to have frontage on a public street or be part of a subdivision. And obviously, there are no public streets. That didn't make sense here. So we're recommending exempting properties on Mouse Island from that rule. In terms of accessory dwelling units, as I mentioned, we're proposing that those be permitted with conditions, but not all of the conditions that apply elsewhere really made sense here. So we're stating all these conditions apply within the RMI unless accepted. And so, for example, owner occupancy of the property, we're suggesting not be required. These are not, at least not now, year-round residences. And so it would be hard to say, oh, owner occupant has to be there at all times. Just wouldn't make sense. Obviously, parking is not required. You're not bringing cars over. So we're exempting them from parking requirements. Accessory dwelling units entrances can be located anywhere. There's no sense in talking about front yard, rear yard, side yards in the context of the island. And freestanding accessory dwelling unit setback requirements do not apply, although again, still that 6-foot setback from any property line would. In terms of the coastal resource setback, we are recommending that Mouse Island be accepted from the setback requirement. Town staff did some research that indicates that the coastal resource setbacks are not required by statute, and the town has the authority to accept the island. Off-street parking and loading and bike parking, again, similar to what we suggested for the ADUs, they're entirely exempted from this section. In terms of flood protection regulations, we explored several possibilities here. At the end of the day, we are not recommending any changes to the flood protection regulations. We explored providing exceptions to Mouse Island property owners for certain aspects of the flood protection regulations, and also explored allowing variances on Mouse Island akin to what you allow for water-dependent uses today. So saying, all right, these houses are basically on the water. They're on an island. Functionally, it's no different than a water-dependent use like a marina. We floated these ideas by DEP, and they said, no, thank you. So we tried, and the state was not supportive of those suggestions. So again, we're leaving the flood protection regulations alone. The state regulations, of course, continue to apply regardless, and the town will continue to enforce its own flood protection regulations, but we're not going to have specific flood protection regulations for Mouse Island. So basically, we're just staying silent on that issue. I think we're nearing the end. Coastal site plan review. This was another one where we considered ways to exempt single unit dwellings on Mouse Island from this review. And then really went back and took a close look at the state enabling law for this, and realized that the state law is really clear that islands not connected to the mainland by a bridge are not eligible for exemption. So this is something that the town did not adopt into its regulations from state law, perhaps because they didn't think they had any such islands in their jurisdiction. So we are actually recommending an insertion of language here to reflect that state law. Unfortunately, that doesn't really help the property owners on Mouse Island, but the state law is very clear there. So that's another one where we tried our best. And that is it. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and would love to take any questions from the PZC, and I don't know how you're handling comments, but I'm sure we'll give all the property owners an opportunity to further share their thoughts.
Anything from staff?
No, other than, I mean, we're comfortable with these regulations as Jeff has presented. Clearly we had to fix things because there are no streets and a lot of measurements are from streets and
No bike wreck.
right,
No, no.
bike routes, exactly.
We want to hear from any of the owners. They have any comments first?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I'm on mute. I'm on mute. I have a couple of questions. So if we had
Hold on
a
a second.
bridge
Hold on.
that,
Excuse me. Hold on a second. We have a point of
oh,
order.
On the agenda, it does say that we're not taking any oral comments, and I don't know if that would cause a problem for
So-
folks who would have wanted to come and present oral.
Right, so we have invited these folks as panelists. They
Okay.
are part of this workshop so that you all can have a discussion with them, since they are the ones who are
Right.
really impacted.
So,
Obviously,
With
if we
the
decide to
audience.
go forward with this, there will be a public hearing. Yeah,
okay, so
And it's
just want to make sure that
Yep.
differentiation.
Right.
Absolutely.
So no audience,
Yep.
but panelists.
Thank you.
As you were. Yes, ma'am.
okay, so hi, I'm Irene Gentili from Three Mouse Island. Hi, everyone. Thank you for doing this and letting us speak. So I had a couple of quick questions as far as just for my clarity. So if we had a bridge, then we would have been exempted from the state law? I mean, that's just so goofy to me. Like, if you had a bridge, you could have been exempted, but not having. But
that's
being
not-
on an
that's-
island, you're not exempted. It seems like it ought to be the opposite.
Yep,
That's
that is,
exactly what the state says. Yeah.
thank you, Jeff. Yep.
Yeah.
So strange. And that goes back to when, like some some old date that they put in place?
I don't know the date of that one, but as I said,
So-
when we started researching this issue, we realized the law was very explicit about that point.
Okay. And then flood insurance used to be under Groton sub-base, so now you're saying it's under state or under knowing?
What, can you explain the flood insurance piece? The flood insurance is still through the National Flood Insurance Program.
Okay, so then that's what it's under. Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
Nothing would change for that.
Nothing changes. Okay.
Mhm.
Any questions, Jeff?
Yeah, I have a question on the ADU. Is that that's by right? And the conditions, you mentioned within.
We can't hear you.
Can't quite hear you.
You have to speak. Try.
There we
Okay,
go.
I'm sorry.
Here you go.
Yep.
Referencing the ADU, is that by right with conditions related to flood zone? Is that what my understanding is?
That's right. There,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I mean, the way we handle accessory dwelling units here is it is an administrative site plan. You don't come to the commission and it's a $50 fee. It's handled strictly by staff. But yeah, the ADU would also have to abide by the flood regs.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. It's just unfortunate the DEEP would rather have Mouse Island be occupied by seagulls than cottages. But that's the feeling and experience that we've had down at Mouse Island 3 in the last 25 years. So it's unfortunate that we can't get any kind of exemption based upon the fact that cottages have been there one way, shape, or form since 1888. But I understand that if the state statute says it's X, and we can't do much about it.
Anyone else? No.
This is Beth Morris. I'm just curious, for the hearing, I'm assuming there will be state representatives there.
So the application will certainly be referred to the state. I don't know whether or not they will attend, but I do expect to get comments in writing from them.
Okay, so we'll have an opportunity to review those comments and, okay, thanks, Deb.
Absolutely.
Right, we're good. Mr. Malloy, you're okay?
Yes, I'm okay.
All right. Michael, do you have anything?
Has Mouse Island been surveyed? These lots are established.
So that's probably a question for the folks who live there. Do you all know, do you have surveys of your lots? I mean, the lot lines that you see are strictly off of GIS in this presentation.
So
I know I have a lot. I know I have a lot line. It's a very jagged lot line. That probably has at least 12 to 13 jags in it. It's nothing square. It goes off at angles. And so I don't know how you'd ever figure out the square footage of it. And I don't even know if you guys have the right square footage of the island. I don't think you do.
Well, we've had
Probably.
ours, one mouse has been surveyed for a DEP permit for going back for our dock that was put in way before we bought 2 years ago. So we do that, that was part of the survey, and that permit is still in effect, I believe, until 2030. If we want to do something with our dock with the DEP. And that came with us.
That's fine. I'm comfortable with that. So long as one lot has been surveyed, then the others can be established from that, I suppose. But that's much, no other question.
No, they
So
can't.
ours would have been surveyed when we got the dock in then.
Right.
From
Yeah, the
downtown.
DEP, if you pull up your DEP permit, ours has a clear survey, yeah,
Yeah,
part of that.
I think the survey's there. I think figuring out the square footage is a whole nother story. Because there's so many lines on the plan. It's not just a box or a square. It's jagged. It's got probably 20, or at least mine has at least 15 or 20 different angles at it. It zigs and zags all over the place because it's not a square island, as you know. So it's difficult to find out
And at
what the
high
exact
tide, it's
square
3
footage is.
islands.
Exactly.
So,
I know.
you know,
Or
so
2.5.
you can get stranded at your neighbor's island if you have a glass too many of wine, if it's high tide, so.
One thing that's interesting is, part of our property that we own is underwater 60 to 80% of the time. Pay taxes on it, and it's basically DEP controls it because it gets wet every day. And based upon the tide, it's underwater. And so that's just part of the site plan, the site. It's just something to keep in mind, is that's why we're concerned about lot size for rebuilds and future rebuild.
And going along with that, Joe, I would also say, wonder if in the future we want to do some more protection with seawalls or something. Where is that line going to fall? I think that's very, very important to us. And where and how you'd build a seawall there.
Right, and that would be under the jurisdiction of DEP. Yep.
Which is then the coastal, and there's no median tide line anymore. So that's a regulation that has really seriously impacted property owners, and especially Mouse Island property owners, because it's really, it's not exactly where it should be. And I don't think the people who pass that law even know what it really entails. The legislators at that point when it was passed. But it decreases the size of our property. Even though it's not underwater, it's below the median high water mark. It's still above, the way DEP writes it, it's above the median high water mark. So that's problematic for us. And it probably would be problematic in rebuilding too, if they're going to use that.
The CJL is problematic. It's so arbitrary. It could be changed in the future, which would be a big problem for a rebuild.
But again, not under
Not
this
under-
commission's,
not this commission.
not under this commission's jurisdiction, right?
Yeah, I understand.
Lauren, you're up.
Just, Jeff, when you were talking about that, the new regulations are silent on flood protection, exactly where does that leave us?
it means
I-
you're enforcing your flood protection regulations as they are. We're not suggesting anything specific to Mouse Island.
Yeah, the same flood regulations that apply to all the flood zones within town
Oh, okay.
would hold true. There's
So,
no.
God forbid, a hurricane came, wiped out, they would have to rebuild.
Yes,
above.
Right,
Yep.
right, and which is
Okay.
why we are measuring the height that we are, so they start at BFE +1 and then go
Exactly.
30 feet.
Yep.
Okay.
One other question, if you may. Our tax district, is that going to change at all, or are we still under the tax district of Mouse Island US subbase?
Yeah, this zoning regulation will not change that.
All right.
And then just, another question just on mechanics of how this is being done. I always, when I look at regulations and it's like, this is the rule except for this, except for this. I mean, we got it in probably, I don't know, half dozen different places. would it make sense to put this as an appendice? You know, that it's its own little section, you know?
I don't think so, because we are landing a new zone on this land. We're putting a new zoning district on the island, and so it's appropriate to have it within the body of the zoning regulations as opposed to an appendix.
Okay,
I
so,
agree.
all right, and I think that's all I have.
Good. Maybe this is for you guys or Deep, I'm sure, is that in terms of the lot size, I'm not concerned with measuring what the jagged lines are, because we have programs that do that. But is there a way to stop time and say the lot size is what it is today? And I say that just because bad storm comes and moves a few rocks and now your lot size is different. Don't you have permission to bring in a boat and dump some more rocks back where they were so you can maintain your lot size?
Again, that would be Deep's jurisdiction, not ours, because that's below the coastal jurisdiction line.
Right.
Yeah, and we did sort of kick around that
Okay.
idea.
Try that? Okay.
Yeah, we did. We actually, the town attorney has taken a first look at these and offered some suggestions, but I think it's safer just to have a really small minimum lot size, as long as, I mean, we're assuming you guys would not want to have more lots out here.
No,
Okay,
it's exactly right. So
okay.
this is maintaining what's there,
Okay.
including height or a little bit higher when you have to rebuild. Is for those of us who want to sail out there, it's nice to know where that rock is. So it's, if there wasn't houses, you'd have to build a lighthouse. So I think it's fine to have a house, have the structures out there, not just seagulls. So I'm good with that. Just so I understand though, what the, and we're sure that even with the 2,500, that still precludes subdividing any lot?
With all of the other restrictions, the 6 foot off of the property lines, the coastal jurisdiction line, and
Okay,
all of those other things
all
mixed
adds up.
in.
just for reference, what is the difference between the surface and the floodplain at that point?
So, all right. So,
How high would these buildings be?
there you go. I knew it was coming. So,
And-
so this is in a VE 14 zone. So how our regulations read right now. So, if they were to, rebuild completely and elevate, it would make it, it would be 14 feet plus the 1 foot of above base flood elevation. So that's 15 feet plus 30 feet. So it would be mid roof would be 45 feet.
So what's the elevation of the island now?
It depends. And I think they could probably tell you better.
Yeah,
Time is.
but it's definitely not 14.
No, it's not
Right,
14. No,
exactly.
no.
It's a few.
And
That's correct.
Jim, is your property the highest? Do you have the highest?
Yes,
Jim,
And what do
Yes.
you, is it 8 feet is what you told me?
I think it's around 8 feet, yeah.
8 feet.
So
Oh, that high. Okay.
Right.
Oh, so you only have 7 feet.
that's the front of the house. The back of the house might be 7 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so in case of disaster, it'll all be going farther up.
Yes.
All right. And I don't have anything else.
All right, Clint?
Oh, Clint, I'm sorry. Clint, you have any
I do
comments?
not have anything else. Thank you.
So commission wise, are you all comfortable if we prepare an application to start the hearing process? Because I'd like to have these things in effect before hurricane season, you know, just, okay.
All right,
Yeah.
all good.
All good.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, so we'll work with Jeff on getting the map color right and we'll put an application together. And the folks on Mouse Island, we will certainly let you know well in advance when this hearing will be.
great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for
Cool.
All
attending,
right.
guys.
Bye now.
Thanks
Thanks.
for all your
Thank you,
help.
everyone.
Take care, all.
Hi, thank you.
And with that, I'll move to adjourn the special meeting.
Second.
They're adjourned.
Yeah, great, thank you, Jeff.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you all.
Jupiter Point is 6 feet in the middle. Half of it is.